Today we are going to discuss about queues concept. Generally, what it mean by queue? Queue is first in first out process, right? So whenever we are processing anything, whichever will comes first, that particular thing has to finish first. First in first out process, we will call it as a queue. The same concept we have in our the blue prism also. Suppose assume that we are processing 1,000 records. We are processing 1,000 records. When you are processing 1,000 records, in these 1,000 records, how many records is valid records? How many records is invalid records? We can able to identify by using a queue. At the same time, only valid records we can able to process to the application. Invalid records we can send it back to the business user. These are the invalid records. This is the one option what we can able to perform with a queue. Another thing also, so main important thing is with a queue, we can able to process the records parallelly. For example, assume that if you have maybe 10,000 records or 1 lakh records, maybe 20,000 records, whatever it may be. If you want to process with one bot, then assume that it will take 10 hours or 20 hours. Then client says that I don't want to take this much of time to process this, to finish this task. I want to finish this task within 2 hours or within 1 hour. Then how to handle this situation? Then the queues will come into the picture. We can able to process the data parallelly at the same time by using multiple processes, multiple bots. Then the queue concept will come. When you are working with a queue, remember, okay, we are going to create a queue. Queue is a internal business object. Queue is internal business object. We have to create a queue first. We need to create queue. When you are creating a queue, remember, always in your data, when you are processing a data, must and should, in that particular data, we should have a primary key. We should have primary key. If you have a primary key, then we can able to process the data. Then only we can able to work with a queue. That is a mandatory thing we need to remember. So this primary key is nothing but it's a unique and it should not be null. Must and should there should be a primary key in a data. Once you create a queue, you can able to see that queue in control room. In control room, so it will give you the status of the each and every record. The queue will process the records row by row basis, one by one. When it is processing the records row by row basis, we are going to call this each and every row here as a work cases. We'll call it as a work case. Don't get confused. We'll call it work case. In interviews, suppose if they ask, so how many work cases you are handling, how many work cases you have in your data set, means nothing but how many records we are processing in a queue. That is nothing but a work case. Okay, now here the work cases status will be pending. We have some statuses for the work cases: pending and locked and completed, and another one is exception. These are the work cases. So we have statuses of the work cases. Pending means it's readily available to run. Locked means if the record is processing, then that is locked. Completed, without any issues, it's valid record. Exception, we have some issues. It means it's an invalid record. Then we will call that as a exception. Now, so let me create a data for this. So we have Excel file. Now observe this data. So just sample, this is sample data, right? How many records we have here? So we have around 10 records. See this, in these records we have a primary key. Employee ID is your primary key. And observe the commission. Commission, somewhere we have a value, somewhere some records we don't have values, right? Where you don't have values, we don't want to process that. Where you have values, we need to process that. For example, assume that we are calculating total salary here. Total salary will be salary plus commission, right? If you use salary plus commission, wherever you have null, then it's an invalid calculation. It will not process, right? Then we should not process this record to the application when we are performing this. We have to process only where you have a commission. That is our requirement. We need to identify from this data, we need to identify how many is valid, how many is invalid. First we will see that. Next we will see how to work with it. So multiple processing, how to divide the data. So in between bot to bot, we will see that. Now if you want to do this, first we need to create a queue. We need to process this data. What we are going to do, if you want to pick the data from this file, from this Excel file, create instance, open workbook and get worksheet as a collection. That is a common thing. After that, what we are going to do, we will use a loop, right? Now onwards, forget about loop. In place of loop, we are going to replace with queue. If you want to validate the data, must and should, the queue should be there. In a loop, it will give each and everything. It will not bother about the record is valid or not, right? It will pick each and everything. It will go for a continuous loop. But here, before giving the data to application, we can able to validate. We can able to check how many records is valid, how many records is invalid. Okay, now we'll see that how to create a queue. To create queue, go to the system. We have an option called queue. Observe this, queues, work queues. Here we need to create new one. Name, give me the name as, for example, queue underscore. We'll give the name as 7. And what it is asking, key name. Key name, always it's a primary key in your data set. What is your primary key here? This is the primary key. Click the primary key and give the primary key here and then apply. Now the queue is created with this name, wq underscore 7. Remember this queue name. We are going to use it again. Now come to the control room. Observe this, the queue has been created. By default, you can able to see that in a control room. See this control room. So that's the here the down. You can able to see the status when the queue is running. When you are processing the data in a queue, you can able to see the status of the queues here. Now, so just come to the studio. And one more thing before going to the implementation. When you are working with a queue will create item IDs. Item IDs internally. These item IDs are internally generated unique random numbers by a queue. For each and every row, for each and every record, it will create a item IDs uniquely identified. Based on these item IDs, we are going to validate. Okay. Here in Excel file, it will pick all the data, right? And it will give it to collection. From the collection, we are going to give it to the queue. We will give it to queue. When we are giving it to the queue, we have some actions in a queue. Add to queue. Add to queue. And next action is get next item. Get next. We will come to this. Why we need to go for the get next item. Okay. So now these are the two actions we have to perform. Add to queue, get next item. What we are doing, basic thing is we are validating the data in a queue. Now come to this. let me create a queue, create a process, queue underscore, so just I'll give the name, give the description. We need to process the data. So again use create instance open workbook, get worksheet as a collection. So now use those things. Create instance, double click, create instance, shortcut I have given VBO, MS Excel VBO, create instance, and then handle. Okay, let it be. After the create instance, we need to use open workbook. Open workbook. In the open workbook also, Excel VBO, and then use open workbook. So it will ask you handle and then file name. Give me the file name. So where the file is available, this is the file name, right? Shift and then right click, copy as a path, come to this. This is the file name. When you give the file name, it will create a workbook name. It will give the file path and then name of the Excel file. That is the workbook name. Okay. So after that, so we need to get the data into collection. The data to collection. Come to the object. MS Excel VBO. Then get worksheet as collection. It will ask you handle and then workbook name and then sheet name. Which sheet we have a data? In a sheet 1. In sheet 1. Okay, we need to get this. Now all the data, it will come to collections here. So we need to create a collection here. Output collection. Now all the data will come to this one. Now from this, we need to give this data to queue. We need to give this data to queue. Previously what we have done, so we have given this data to your loop, right? We have implemented by using loop, but now we have to use a queue because we need to validate. Now queue is an internal business object. Go to queue, add to queue. This object name, see this queue, what queue, and see this what it is asking, queue name. Give me the queue name, what queue underscore 7. What is the queue name we created? What queue underscore 7. This is our queue name, and then data from here, collection, right? So remaining things we will discuss later. So data. So it means whatever the data we have there in a collection, we have given it to the queue. And output, observe this, it will generate item IDs. Item IDs, just click on this. So just to check, so what all the item IDs it has been created, and then all the records it came to the queue. Now when you are validating, one by one only we have to validate, right? One by one after another we have to validate from here. When you are validating one after another, the queue also it has to pick one by one record. That's why we have an option called get next item. Get next item. Use that action. Double click. Get next item. Use the business object name. It's Excel VBO. Observe this. Sorry, queue, right? It's a queue. Get next item. Get next item. What it is asking? Give me the queue name. What queue underscore 7, and then the output. Observe this. When you are giving the queue name, when you are getting the data from record by record basis, for each and every record, it has to generate item IDs and then collection. So here data underscore queue, will take this one. Why we are doing this? When you are processing one by one, we need to validate. If you want to validate one by one only, we have to validate what that particular item ID for first record item ID it has to validate. For first record collection data, we have to validate. Here we have only one business rule. So for example, validation rule based on the commission. If the client says I have multiple business rules on multiple columns, then we have to do it for multiple things. Here only one thing, we will see with only one thing, how to validate here. Now all the data, it came to queue, from the queue, so we are loading the data to get next item. It means one by one record. When it is picking one by one record, let's see so how it is going to work. Okay. So till here we will run and then we will see. Set. Run this. Given all the data to collection, 10 records, let it be. Observe this. All the data came to collection. This collection data, it came to the queue, add to queue. If you observe, add to queue, it generated item IDs, right? Observe this. All the unique item IDs and some random numbers it has been generated. Okay. These item IDs, we need to pick one by one to validate. That's why here get next item ID. See this? First item ID it has taken. Come to the collection. This get next item collection. First record it has picked. First record it has picked. Now come to the control room. Click on a queue. Observe this, what you can able to see it here in the control room. See this? Observe the status, pending. All the status is pending, right? Everything is pending and one thing is locked because the first record we are processing, it came to the get next item. It means it is processing. Remember, always the queue will pick pending items or pending work cases or pending items from your data, or from control room. Always get next item, it will pick only the pending work cases from your control room. Okay. Once it is logged or once it is processing or once it is exception, it is not going to pick. It is not going to pick that particular item IDs or particular work cases. Observe this. And one more thing, if here work case, if it is in a locked state or if it is in a pending state, we can't able to delete the work cases. See this? This is locked. This is pending. If you right click, do you have an option to delete? No. If it is in locked or if it is in pending, you can't able to delete any of your work cases. For the locked also same. See this? If it is logged or if it is pending, you can't able to delete your work case. Now come to this. Okay. Now we picked first record, right? Like that, how many records it has to pick from this collection? How come this will know, right? If you observe here data, all the data is there in a collection, right? Here it has to stop. It means item ID is null, right? Or length of item ID is equal to 0. What it mean by that? The records is not available in that collection or in that work queue, in that Excel sheet, right? Same way we have to use the condition here. If you want to use the condition, then we have to use decision. Decision we need to check. For example, here employee ID is equal to null, then stop the process. Employee ID is equal to not null, then continue. Or length of employee ID is equal to 0, then stop. Length of employee ID is not equal to 0, then You can continue. You can use any condition, length or commission. Sorry, so null. Anything is fine. Come to this decision. Give the link here based on item ID. Already it's created item IDs here, right? For each and every record, it is creating item IDs. Go to text length of item ID is equal to 0. What is mean by that? We don't have any records. Then go to end. Length of item ID is equal to 0, then end. If it is not equal to 0, then what is our intention here? We are validating the data, right? Based on the commission, we need to check whether the commission is null or not. Again, the same condition we can take. For that, again use another decision. Give the link. So here, this commission value where you are having in this queue, right? In this queue name dot column name, queue name dot field name, right? Queue name dot field name is commission. Double click. Again go to the length of, that is the queue name dot commission test it is equal to 0. This is a condition. If it is equal to 0, then it is a invalid record, right? If it is equal to not equal to 0, then it is a valid record. Is it clear? Here, if you observe, if the commission length is equal to 0, it means we don't have anything here. If is equal to commission is equal to null, we don't have anything here. It means that is invalid record. That is invalid record. We don't have proper data in the column. If you have the value, then it is a valid record. Come to this. For that, to decide valid or invalid, we have another actions in a queue: mark completed, mark exception. We'll give these two things. Observe this. Come to the queue. One is, observe, mark completed, mark exception. If it is equal to 0, then that is exception, right? For which one we need to take it as an exception? If you observe control room, which one it is showing? Item IDs, right? For that item IDs, we need to mark it as an exception. Go to the text, item ID. And what may be the reason? We need to give invalid value in commission field. This is the reason of the exception. Okay, click OK. This is for exception. We call this as an exception. And this is for completed. This item ID has to be marked as a completed. Go to the queue, then mark as completed. See this, mark completed. For which one we need to mark it as a complete? Item ID, right? This item ID is generating by get next item. See this, for this item ID, for one record we are checking. For the same record, it will check whether the value is available or not. Yes, then come to this, then check the commission. If the value is not available, then end it here itself, don't come here. And then commission is not null, then it's a completed. Commission is null, then it is an exception. For one record we are processing, right? For all the records we need to process, right? So we need to again use anchor and give the anchor here, and we need to connect to get next item. From this to the get next item. Is it clear? So now we'll run this. Reset. Okay. And if you observe, if you want to delete this, we will delete this. First we need to mark it as a We can't able to delete anything. Okay, first all the pending items will pick, mark as selected exceptions. We need to give some reason why you are marking as an exception. Now we can able to delete. See this, all are done, work deleted. Come to the work queue. Do you have anything here? No, right? We don't have anything here. Now we will process. Come to this process studio and reset, run. So we are doing for only one validation rule. So if you have n number of validations rules, you have to use n number of decisions. Based on that, we need to check whether the record is a valid or not. Okay, it is going for, see this. So first record it went, and then so next it will take second record. So each and every record, see this, third record it is processing. So now come to the control room. Now refresh it. Observe this. See this, first, second, we don't have any issues. It's a completed, status is completed. What about this third? This says that it is an exception, invalid value in a commission field, right? We have given this invalid value in commission field is an exception. And observe this, locked. 4 is locked because the fourth record is processing, fourth work case is processing here, that's why it is locked. Now again if you refresh, it will show you so which record is processing. So like this we can able to understand so which record is valid, which record is invalid. Is it clear? Which one is valid, which one is invalid, we can able to see by using these things. Okay, fine, we saw that. So how to pick valid and invalid records, how to give it the things in a control room, right? But how come you are going to pass these valid records to application? How come you are going to pass only these invalid records to that application, right? If you connect this completed so to some other thing, then it will process. If you connect this exception to some other process, some other flow, then it will do that, right? If it is exception, do these things. If it is completed, do these things. And another option also we have to pick all these exception records into the one collection, to pick all these completed records to one collection. Once you get the data into the collection, only those collection records you can process to the application. Only these exception records collection data you can able to save it, and then you can able to send it back to the business user. That option is there. For that, what you can able to do is just observe what we are implementing. We have another option. Double click. Let me delete this. Delete. We have an option called go to queue. Observe. Get item data. Get item data. This one, it will pick item data from that queue. For that exception, it will pick that item data. And so where you need to store, observe this, collection. Collection it is showing. This is for exception. Exception remaining things not required. Exception data. Exception data. Let it be created. Now it will come to this particular. This is for exception data. Get item data. One by one, right? One by one it will pick. But so when it is processing one by one, it will come and then it will give you the value here. That is fine. But after that, we need all the values, right? Not only one. It will override. Every time it will override. But we need all the values into that. So what you have to do is, we have another option called in a collection manipulation. Collection manipulation is another business object we have. So just observe this. We will use that one. Action. Double click. Come to the business object. Come to work queue. Sorry. that is collection manipulation. Collection manipulation. Append rows to collection. So this append rows to collection. If you give this, whatever the data it is coming to that collection, it will write it into another collection. It will append everything. Okay. Here, what is the collection to append? This one, right? This one we need to append. And then where you need to do that? So let me create another new one. Final exceptions. Final exceptions. Exception data. This is the queue. In this we have to create. Same way, here main collection is where, what is the main collection? This is the main collection. This is the main collection we will take, and then so from this you have to append to this. That's why we are generating output also, because we don't have output. So this one it will generate and it will take it as a main collection, same thing. So now from this it is going to append the data to here, final exception data. The same thing we have to do it for now. All the exception records, it will come to this final exception data. All the completed records, I need to pick it into some other collection. Then we have to do the same thing. Let me take the same thing, copy, paste it here. Okay, but this one is for completed data. Completed data. For completed data, get next item. Okay, item ID. Okay, this one also, this is for completed all. Completed all data. So it is appending, right? Collection here. So we need to create a new one from this. Okay, just a minute. Here we didn't create an output. The previous one is there. Here we don't want to do this. Not exception. This is completed collection. All the data will come to completed collection here. From this, one by one it will pick. From this you have to append the data to another one. So this one is for completed final records collection at append, and then this one is this collection completed data instead of this completed, and then we will go to output final completed data. Completed data created. This one we have to give it as a main collection. This is a main collection. Final completed data. Okay. Now, whatever the values it will come to here, one by one, it is going to append into this. Okay. So now this is for completed. This is for exception. Exception final. This is the way how you can able to pick the values. Link exception completed data. So here we are appending data, queue data, and then after this we have to give a link. Go to this. Directly to this. Okay. Now what is going to be happen? Whatever the data it is coming, valid or invalid, it is going. Each and everything it will append to one by row by row basis. Row by row basis it will come to, it will get the data from item ID. If you observe this here, series get item data. This item data it will give it to collection, this collection. One by one it will override, but we want everything. We want to see all the exceptions, all the valid records. That's why append collection we are using here. Append rows to collection. Whatever the values here it is coming, all the values it will append to this final exception data. Same thing here. Get item data, and then that data we are appending to some other collection. Now reset, and then we'll try to run this. Run. So this is the way how we can pick valid and invalid records. Okay, we are picking, okay fine, valid and invalid records. So the status is there in a control room. The same queue name, if you use it in another process, remember always the queue get next item, it will pick next pending items. Multiple bots, we can be able to use multiple bots the same queue name. For example, assume that we have 100 records or we have 10 records. So once it is finished, we will see the result. Meanwhile, we will discuss this thing. Here, come to the Excel file. So this is the Excel file. We have a queue name. Queue name is work queue underscore 7. Assume that. The same work queue name we are using in 3 bots. Bot. This is the main bot. Assume that this is main bot. It will pick all the data. This is bot 1, bot 2, and bot 3. In bot 1, you are processing. You are giving it to the application, the data. Always it will pick next pending item, right? It will check the queue. It will check the data in a queue. So this one it's creating the data in a queue. This main bot, it will creating a data in a queue. All the pending items will be there in a queue. From this, first pending item it will pick. When you are running, assume that all these 3 bots you are running parallelly. First pending item it will pick. When it is picking first pending item, it will be in the status of locked. Then it will go to the next bot. When it is has access in the same queue, for all these things, queue will be the same. Queue name will be work queue underscore 7 only for all these 3 things. So when you are processing this, okay, same name. So here it will check for that queue what is the next pending item. It will be 2. It will be 3. Now during this processing, this one has been already completed. Then these 2 are in locked. Then it will come to the next pending item 4. In between, before this, if it processed the bot 3, then it will go to the queue and then it will check what is the next pending item. It will pick 5. After this bot came. So this bot processing the data, this work queue. Again it will pick next pending item. Like this, always your bot will pick next pending items. These things we will call it as a multi-bot architecture also. Don't get confused. In the interviews, if anyone asks what it means by multi-bot architecture, or can you tell me the parallel processing, or how you can reduce the time when you are processing the data. So suppose my bot is running 10 hours. I want to reduce the time. Then this is the approach. We can use all the data into the queue. We can assign the data to the queue first. When you assign the data, what is going to be happen in a control room? You will display. It will pick all the data to the queue. It will store in the queue. From that queue, we are accessing each and every process. We are accessing each and every bot. We are accessing the data from the queue. Always it will pick first pending item. If you don't give anything, so it will pick. So based on the item numbers, first in first out process. Okay, these are thing. For example, assume that I want to process only for specific state or only for specific country. For example, in a Excel file, assume that so we have different countries data. So for example, let's say India, so US, Australia and Canada. One bot has to pay only Australia data. Another bot has to pay only India data. Another bot has to pay only Canada data. It means filtering. We are restricting. If you observe the data here, see this name A, B, V, D. Again, we have A. How many times we have A? Here, and then here and here. Three places, right? First bot has to pick only the name it contains A. Second bot has to pick only it contains name with a B, only 2 records. Next bot has to pick only the name which contains with V. Then how to do that? We will see that in a next class. That is a tag concept. Tags and tag filter concept in a queue. We can so restrict the data when you are processing the data in a bots, different bots. Now come to this. Let me save this one. When we require, come to this. Now this one is completed, right? Now observe this. This one always get data. It will contain the last record. That's fine. Come to this queue. So this all are exception data. All data we don't have a values for this, right? We don't have values here for this. All are exceptions, nothing but invalid data. This data you can able to give it to business user. Again you can send it back like in a mail, or you can so save it in Excel file. You can send whatever it may be. You can give it to the specific part. And here all are valid records. See this, all these are valid records. Only these valid records will give it to the application. From the collection you can give collection name dot this collection name dot field name. If you give it, then automatically it will process. Is it clear now? So how to validate and then how to work with a queue. Remember, when you are working with a queue, so we need to know what is a primary key in your data set. Must and should, you should have a primary key, then only the queue will work. Okay, based on that it will generate a item IDs internally. So how to check how many records it has to process means, in a decision we are checking the item ID is null or not, or length of item ID. Based on the business rules, we are giving a another decisions. Okay, this is the default thing what you can able to work it in a queue. Let me save this one. So again, so we will see tomorrow. So what is tags, what is tag filter, and then what it means by the differ. This is very important. So most of the interviews, so they will ask the questions in a. So we definitely will get at least so 2 to 3 questions on a queue concept. Okay, so you have to understand properly. So if you are able to understand, let me know. So we'll discuss again and again also. So no issues. Just practice this thing, same thing what we have done, and then we will discuss if you have any doubts. Okay. So any questions here?
Dinesh, we have class tomorrow or Monday?
Monday.